they stopped Renee Good's GoFundMe campaign, and that's a good thing. Let me explain.
Number one, my oath impels me to be here. I took an oath in 1969 to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I had to be here to make sure that no one else was killed.
She was a agitator, probably a paid agitator, but in my opinion, she was an agitator, a very high-level agitator, so professional, she wouldn't stop screaming.
Renee Good's fundraiser had just crossed $1.5 million when it was suddenly shut down, and now reports are claiming that Donald Trump himself ordered it closed, accusing it of funding terrorism. And that move alone has set off a chain reaction that's now pulling in veterans, Minneapolis protesters, and serious questions about what actually happened the night Renee was killed. Now, a GoFundMe created to support Renee Nicole Good's wife and 3 children quickly went viral after her death. In just days, nearly 38,000 people donated, pushing the total past $1.5 million. Her wife, Rebecca, even released a statement thanking people across the country and around the world for stepping up.
So I don't know if you guys have been watching, but the GoFundMe for Renee Nicole Good's wife and kids, family, has raised $1.5 million. That's amazing. I believe there's about a total of 38,000 plus people who donated.
But then, just as fast as the money came in, the fundraiser was closed. And according to reports circulating now, that shutdown wasn't random. People are saying Trump personally pushed for it to be taken down, framing the fundraiser as tied to terrorism. That claim has shocked a lot of people, especially considering Trump had already publicly defended the ICE officer involved in Renee's death, even as video footage told a much more complicated story. So let's rewind to what actually happened. As y'all probably know by now, Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old activist mom, was unalived during a tense protest in Minneapolis involving ICE officers. Federal officials say she weaponized her SUV, claiming she drove directly at an agent, Jonathan Ross, who then fired the fatal shot. But videos from the scene don't fully match that story. Footage, including video recorded on Ross's own phone, shows Renee still inside her car while Rebecca stood outside yelling at ICE officers. You can hear Rebecca urging her wife to drive, baby, drive, as agents ordered Renee out of the vehicle. When the car began to move, Ross fired. What's important here is what the video shows and what it doesn't. Multiple witnesses said that Ross did not appear to be directly in the path of the SUV. The footage shows his legs to the side of the vehicle as it moved past him. The car does not knock him down, yet Trump publicly claimed Renee viciously ran over the officer.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
That contradiction is a big reason why local officials in Minnesota have called the shooting a murder and condemned the use of deadly force. After that, the focus online shifted real quick, straight to Renee's wife. And that's where people started making claims that she pushed Renee into it, like she was encouraging her to move toward the ICE agents instead of backing off. A lot of that is coming from the video, where you can hear her yelling, and people are using that moment to build their own conclusions. Just to be clear, all of this is alleged. This is how the internet is interpreting it. Then things really picked up once people started connecting both women to Minnesota Ice Watch. It's an activist group that tracks ICE activity and shows up when raids are happening. Critics say the group trains people to go into these situations and get in the middle of things. Supporters say they're just there to document and observe. None of that has been officially confirmed in this case. It's just the framing people are running with online. And then there's another angle people won't let go of. Some are accusing the wife of being lawsuit hunting, basically saying she showed up with a camera hoping something would happen that could turn into a legal case later. That's where comments like this start circulating. Lawsuit hunting is a sport. I tried to tell them it will be a crime one day. Running around with your camera lawsuit hunting, this one went bad. That comment pretty much captures the tone of that side of the internet. But again, that's opinion, not proof. That's how people online are talking, not something investigators have confirmed. Now, after the fundraiser was closed, protests in Minneapolis intensified. Demonstrations against ICE actions spilled into the streets, and tensions rose fast. Trump responded by threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, a rarely used law that allows active duty military troops to be deployed inside the U.S. for law enforcement. He posted that he would use it if Minnesota officials failed to stop what he called professional agitators and insurrectionists.
Minneapolis is on edge tonight. The Pentagon is putting 1,500 troops on standby, and the FBI is reportedly asking agents across the country to volunteer for temporary duty in that city. This comes after days of protests following the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an ICE agent. ABC's Matt Rivers is back on the scene in Minneapolis.
Now, that language alone set off alarms. Because at the same time Trump was threatening troops, veterans were stepping forward and saying something very different. Two Army combat veterans, sisters Chelsea Kane and Courtney Azar, began documenting ICE activity in Minneapolis. Both served multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. Azar served for 18 years before being medically discharged. Kane served as an infantry soldier with special forces. They said they weren't there to provoke anything. They were there to observe and record. And what they described didn't sit right with them. They said ICE officers were not acting calm under pressure. They described agents getting angry, throwing people to the ground, punching civilians, and escalating situations instead of de-escalating them.
I moved my car! I am disabled! I have a brain injury!
Stay back.
I am autistic and I have a brain injury! Put me down! I was just trying to get to the doctor!
One of the sisters said bluntly that in the military, they were trained to stay cool in chaos, and what they were seeing from ICE was the opposite. That matters, because the officer who unalived Renee, Jonathan Ross, is also a war veteran. He spent over a decade working for the Department of Homeland Security. So now you've got veterans on both sides of this story, and they're not agreeing on what professional conduct looks like. But while all this is happening, y'all have been asking where J.D. Vance stands in all of this. Well, he basically gave the ICE officer full cover. At a White House briefing, Vice President J.D. Vance said the ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good in Minneapolis is protected by absolute immunity, meaning, in his words, that because the officer was a federal law enforcement official doing federal work, he shouldn't be held accountable in state court. Vance said something like he was doing his job, and that any attempt by Minnesota prosecutors to pursue criminal charges would just get thrown out by a judge.
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
Now that sounded like a full-on shield for the officer involved. Like once you're a federal agent, all your actions are off limits in situations like this, period. But people online and legal observers were quick to call that out because absolute immunity doesn't automatically apply to every situation. It's a complicated legal idea, and experts have been saying that law enforcement officers aren't always fully protected just because they're federal. They pointed out that if someone goes beyond normal duty, if what they did wasn't truly necessary, then immunity doesn't always block prosecution.
Let me be clear. If any law enforcement agent, any ICE agent, is going to come to Philly to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here. Because if you do that here, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be arrested. You will stand trial.
So while Vance was basically telling Minnesota officials not to even try, a lot of people, including lawyers and commentators, were pushing back, saying it's not as simple as he made it sound. And the way Vance framed it made a lot of people uneasy, especially because he was doing it in a moment with protests on the ground, vets speaking up, and families demanding answers. At this point, veterans are weighing in, donors are angry, Minneapolis is on edge, and people are asking a question that hasn't been answered yet. If Renee Good was truly the threat Trump says she was, why is so much effort being spent shutting people up instead of letting the facts speak? And that's where this story really starts to get uncomfortable.